All right, let's get it, man. Bryce Gelman here, back with another medium. I'm not going to say long form because I do live streams. That's more long form. I'll go like an hour on those. This is medium form content. I'll keep this to 10 to 15 minutes. I do a lot of short form content on TikTok and YouTube Shorts if you want to check that out as well. But I'm back with these videos. I'm going to keep it to around 10 to 15 minutes. Today, I'm going to be giving my midseason grades for the Knicks, for specifically the starters. If time permits and I'm under the time limit that I've set myself, I'll get into some of the bench players. But as of right now, expect the starters. And let's jump right into it. The Knicks are I'm not going to say in a good spot this year. I'm not going to say that the Knicks have exceeded expectations. They went into the season with the highest odds to make the NBA Finals out of the Eastern Conference. When you saw the injury to Jason Tatum, when you saw the injury to Tyrese Halliburton, it felt like the entire sea opened up. It's like the Knicks parted the Red Sea. And all the Knicks had to do was go right down the middle to get to where they needed to be. And of course, we've seen what Detroit has been this year in perhaps the biggest surprise in the Eastern Conference. Far and away the best team in the Eastern Conference, the best record in the NBA. No one expected that. But the Knicks sit at third in the Eastern Conference behind the Celtics of all teams without Jason Tatum. So I think it's somewhat underwhelming what we've seen from the Knicks this year. This is the point of this. I'm not doing team grades, but I'm going to be giving player grades, maybe do an entire team grade, but that can't, take up, 10 to 15 minutes. That should be a longer video in and of itself. But let's start off with the captain, Jalen Brunson, who I'm giving a B+. Jalen Brunson this year, he's still a top 10 player in the NBA, right? He's lived up to the expectations, scoring the ball. He hasn't been as efficient this year, which is one of my major knocks at him. I'll get to that in a second. But Jalen still scores at will. He's still the driving force behind the entire offense. He is the offensive hub. Far and away the most usage on this team. And he's the leader. You saw that terrible stretch where the Knicks went 2-9 in 11 games. Jalen Brunson held that players-only meeting, and they went on a win streak of eight games in a row. So he's still the heart and soul of this team. You got to give him credit for that. That's why it's his rating, his grade isn't any lower than a B+. But in terms of efficiency, in terms of his facilitation, it's been underwhelming. It has. He's taken, if you look at his game, he's now taken 38% of his shots from three. He's been operating outside of the arc for the majority of the time. And that's become an issue because it equates to him dribbling around, zigzag cheesing like you're playing NBA 2K with all of his pivots and his fakes and his crossovers and his step backs. And some of the time it works. But other times it doesn't. And that has killed the Knicks in big spots throughout this season. It has led to offensive stagnation. It has led to a lot of other terrible sequences for the Knicks, which have, again, lost them games. This kind of leads into my next point. They go hand in hand. Jalen Brunson is averaging 6.1 assists per game. When you consider the change in philosophy from Mike Brown, from Tom Thibodeau to Mike Brown, it isn't like if you compare the advanced stats from last year to this year, there isn't much of a difference, but you see it on the court. You see the faster pace of play. You see the better ball movement. This is the new philosophy that Mike Brown has established with the Knicks. Yet Jalen Brunson's assists are down from 7.3 last year to 6.1 this year. I think that's inexcusable. Sure, he's played a minute or two less per game, but he still has the ball in his hands every single possession. I'd say, and I don't think that this is hyperbole, that half of the possessions that he's on the court, he's at least looking to facilitate on his own. He's looking to score. He's looking to draw a help defender so he can kick out for a wide open three. But he has the ball in his hands every single possession. 6.1 is not good enough. It's not. Again, with the change in philosophy on the offensive side, not good enough. So that's why Jalen Brunson gets a B+. He's still playing like a top 10 player in the NBA. He's still Jalen Brunson. He is. But the lack of facilitation and the stagnation that occurs on offense when he tries to go hero ball, clears everyone else out, knocks him down a peg. That's why he's a B+. Now let's get to Cat, who, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. There really hasn't been much positive about Karl-Anthony Towns this year, maybe besides his ability to rebound on the defensive side. I'm giving Karl-Anthony Towns a C. It could be lower. It definitely could be. And it probably should be, but it's not. Because he's still an all-star. He's still averaging 20 points per game. There are a lot of knocks. There are a lot of negatives. The cons drastically outweigh the pros in this instance. And it all stems from his inability to knock down the three at a consistent rate. He's shooting the three. He's shooting 35% from three. 35%. Which is by far the worst percentage of his career. And it isn't even close. The Knicks acquired Karl-Anthony Towns to give them the spacing they needed for Jalen Brunson to operate within the arc. To allow shooters to get open easier. To allow for a 5-out style of basketball. Defenders still respect Cat's ability to shoot, especially from 30 feet out. Defenders, they go out there. Whether it be a bigger or a guard. But 35% from three is inexcusable. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, the body language that we've seen, the demeanor that we've seen through various stretches of the season, the reports that he's frustrated with his names being included in trade talks, which I think is pretty tone deaf, considering how poorly he played up until that point to get included in said trade talks. He has been a non-factor on the offensive end. And now, because of the last, I'd say, month and a half, 2 months of basketball that he's played, he's averaging the least amount of field goals that he's averaged in his career per game. Per game. Even his rookie year, he took more shots per game. The offensive fouls have been brutal. Pretty sure he is the most offensive fouls in the NBA. Feels like he's in foul trouble every other game. His usage is down a lot. And I think that another reason why he's getting a C and not anything lower is because I think that there's some truth to the fact that Mike Brown has been utilizing him in the wrong way, that he isn't as much of a hub offensively as he probably should be. He's not able to operate in spots that would be better for him. So I think that you gotta consider that when we discuss this here. That's why he's a C. But Cat, biggest disappointment this season on the Knicks. I don't think you'd find any Knicks fan who would disagree with me. All right, let's move on. Mikal Bridges, I'm giving a B+. I think it's night and day in terms of the Knicks offense, what it looks like with Mikal Bridges on the floor. The offensive rating is significantly higher. I believe it's 126 as opposed to like 114, 115 last year. He has been huge for the Knicks offensively. And I think it stems a lot from his movement off the ball And we've seen recently him pick up, and this is more or less an OG Anunoby thing. It's been a specialty from him, but Mikal Bridges is now cutting off the ball better than he has since, I think last year he was adept at it, but earlier on in the year he wasn't doing it a lot. But recently he's been very solid at it. The backdoor cuts, baseline, like he's gotten open looks at the basket because he's quick. And he's slippery. You see it on the defensive end. His point of attack defense has been pretty solid. He still gets bodied by these bigger guards. But he's slippery. He gets past guys. And he's been using that to his advantage. So I think that, when you look at all that stuff and when you look at this other thing that I'm about to mention on face value, it really makes you think and realize that he has been really good for the Knicks. And what I'm about to mention is he's now shooting 38% from three this year after 35% last year. Couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. His shot form was as convoluted and complex as I've ever seen anyone have. When I used to play with some of my friends in sixth grade, the majority of them had better shot forms than what we saw from Mikal Bridges last year, where it just looked unnatural, and it translated to what we saw on the court. This year, he has fixed it. He's looked way more confident. And in games where he's shooting well from three, it's very hard to beat the Knicks. It is. Because he's able to get open because of his ability to shoot off the dribble. He's just a great moving three-point shooter. He is. And I you may ask, well, Bryce, why isn't he higher if you haven't said any negatives? And all this kind of led me to this is the fact that Mikal Bridges defensively has not been great. Has not. I say he's one of the best off-ball defenders in the NBA, but again, he gets bodied by these smaller guards, and that's just not the only negative. I don't know why I just said just defense. On the offensive end, he is somehow averaging less free throws attempted per game than he did last year, which I thought would be almost impossible. Last year, he averaged 1.4 free throws attempted per game. This year, 1.3. It's inexcusable. And it's confounding to me that the aggressiveness has just not been there. It's something that a lot of Knicks fans were yearning for. Be aggressive. Draw fouls. Go into contact. See contact. Stop fading away. And we haven't. And that's the main reason why he's not higher. He needs to play more aggressively. He has to. OG Anunoby, I'm giving a B. Actually, a B plus. I'm not gonna. I think he deserves higher than that. He's OG Anunoby. Like when someone provides you that solid of defense, and with someone who on a nightly occasion is able to match up and lock down the opposing team's best player, it can't be anything lower than a B minus. I mean, unless you're like Tony Allen offensively, and you're an inept offensive player, but that's not OG Anunoby. He's still averaging 16.5 points per game, shooting 37% from three. I think you do have to take into consideration. I do think you have to account for that atrocious stretch of basketball that he played from mid-December to mid-January, in which he was a non-factor. A non-factor. I like what I've seen from OG Anunoby, especially over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks. Of course, he's got this toe injury now, this sore toe. Just the lack of transparency with this team is it can be infuriating at times. Who knows how much longer OG Anunoby is going to be out for? And it's sad because he was looking really good before he got hurt. But offensively, he's been good again. He has. He has been very adept at creating his own shot. He might be the second best shot creator in the starting lineup. He's got the step back game. I mentioned this before, he's a great cutter, cuts the basket. He's able to body smaller defenders, able to get to the basket with the ball. He is one of the best two-way players in the NBA. That's why I'm giving him a B plus. And he's OG Anunoby. It would take him playing some of the worst basketball you've ever seen on the offensive side for him to be anything lower than B minus. Just my opinion. Now for the last one, you saved the best for last. Someone that I've been extremely hard on. There has been no bigger critic of this guy than me, Bryce Gelman, and that's Josh Hart. It's the biggest revelation of the year. I continue to be astonished by what I see from Josh Hart on a nightly basis. The guy's shooting over 40% from three. With all the ailments, with everything going on with his fingers, with everything else going on with Josh Hart, he's shooting 40+% from three. He's the best three-point shooter in the Knicks starting lineup statistically this year. Who would have thought that? If I told you that before the season, you'd think I'm crazy. You look at me like I had three heads. Josh Hart has provided the energy in shorter spurts. This is what I was most infuriated about last year, and it wasn't necessarily a knock on him. It was more of a knock on Tom Thibodeau. Stop playing the guy 38 minutes a game. He couldn't shoot the three to save his life. And Tom Thibodeau insisted on playing him 40 minutes a game, and it killed any spacing the Knicks had. Well, this year he's shooting 40%. So you can play him as much as you want. And Mike Brown still isn't playing him nearly as much as Tom Thibodeau played him last year. But he gives you his all every time on the court. He's become the secondary facilitator in the Knicks starting lineup. Brunson and then him. His usage is higher than it's been in a long time. And offensively, he's been a lot better. You know, his offensive rating has been significantly better than it has been since he got traded to the Knicks. And that second half of the season when he was shooting like 50% from three. Obviously a fluke. The stats don't necessarily tell you the story with Josh Hart, but he has been a much better player this year than he was last year. And I think he deserves credit for that. He deserves his flowers for being the best Knick. I don't even know if I said it. The most surprising Knick, positively. I don't even think I said it. I'm giving him an A-. A- for Josh Hart. The best grade. Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that? Definitely not me. All right, that'll do it. Wanted to keep this to 10 to 15. Is what it is. Did 18 minutes. I might be doing another thing on the Knicks bench. I want to get to a bunch of those guys. It's too soon to say anything about Jose Alvarado. Jeremy Sohan hasn't played a game. There are a lot of moving parts to that Knicks bench, but at least you know what you're going to get with the Knicks starters. And that's why, this worked out pretty well. But thanks everyone for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, subscribe down below. Or if you want to follow me on Twitter, go ahead. As I said, a lot more solid, consistent content coming your way. Giants, Knicks, Yankees. Stay tuned for all of it. Stay tuned for these shorter videos. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you all soon.